Well, in truth, he has been battered by this SAS down at Swan Island recently. Speak up, Greg.
G'day. I'll just tell 3 very short stories about the single greatest threat to Australian sovereignty currently facing us. I'll give you a clue. It starts with U and ends with A. Anyone?
United Admiral?
The United Admiral. No, he's a good bloke. United States of America. Uncle Sam. The first story is about me on 2nd of October. With 3 friends, we managed to get onto Swan Island, a secretive military base just off Queenscliff. Now, Swan Island is the training ground for the SAS 4 Squadron and the Australian Security Intelligence Services, our equivalent of the CIA. An SAS 4 Squadron is infamous because it works hand in hand with American Special Forces in a group known as the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC. If the US says to the Australian Special Forces, go and raid this house, Australian Special Forces go and raid the house, directly under US command. Now what they do when they raid the house is not knock on the door and say, "G'day, I'm from Australia, how you going, do you know any terrorists?" They go in at 3 o'clock in the morning with flash grenades, they kill anyone they suspect of being a terrorist, and they drag people out of their beds, hand them over to the Americans for rendition. Now when I got onto the island early in the morning on the 2nd of October, we expected, as we did last year when we were protesting increased militarism, we expected to be arrested by the Victorian Police, but what we met were 2 plainclothes Australian Defence Force personnel. We were holding a banner that said "No more US wars," and we were crash tackled into the ground with our hands in the air. We were tied, we had a hessian sack placed over our heads, and then we were stripped naked. And I was told by the person assaulting me that if I did not tell him straight away how many people were on the island, he was going to choke me out, which I learned later is a move where you cut off the jugular vein that he tried to do but didn't succeed. It was quite scary. I was fully naked, handcuffed, and dragged about 15 metres to a pile of wood chips and laid there while this man went and got this Australian Defence Force personnel, the best of the best, went and got a stick. And he came later, and I decided at that point nothing was worth the beating, much to my regret, because these 2 men later on and went and did the same thing to 2 others they found. If I'd held out just a bit longer, maybe they wouldn't have been beaten up. But I gave in, I was frightened, I was beaten up, I was scared, and I told them how many of us were on the island. Well, I tried to, but he kept slapping me around the head. How many? How many? And I couldn't think. And in the end he said, "Tell me how many on the island or I'll shove this stick up your ass." To which I eventually gave him a number, corrected myself to the correct number. And then he said, "Thanks mate," dropped the stick and left. People want to know, where has ISIS come from? Why do people join ISIS? If this is the tactics of the Australian Army, if this is the tactics of US Special Forces, and we know it is, why wouldn't you join in fighting against these imperial overlords? Why wouldn't you be radicalised to protect your neighbourhood, protect your community? You're going to stand with the most vile of people, the ISIS, to protect yourselves because you're being attacked by the most vile of us. I said I'd tell 3 short stories, and I've just told 1 long one. How it connects to today. And I just want to tell another story because I've been carrying the Palestinian flag today. I went to Palestine in March 2012. And has anyone heard of a company called Elbit?
Yes.
Few hands, I'm really glad. For those who don't know, Elbit is an Israeli communications group. A few years ago, Norway, Finland and Sweden pulled their funds out of Elbit because of the human rights abuses that Elbit had been perpetuating on the Palestinian people. 6 months later, the Australian government gives the same group who's built the surveillance system on the wall, the apartheid wall in Palestine, and on the drones which killed children in Gaza, most recently. 1,000 children were killed in the Israeli operations there. This company was given a $300 million contract by the Australian government. Our tax dollars are funding the oppression, death and murder of the Palestinian people, all at the behest of our American overlords who tell us which arms companies to fund, which military hardware to buy, such as the Joint Strike Fighter, going to cost us upwards of $100 billion, doesn't even fly yet. Why are we working harder? Why is our environment being destroyed more and more? It's because our money is being sucked up into the military-industrial complex as we turn against each other. Human rights are oppressed, resources squandered. We're being taxed without proper representation. We need to resist the war machine that's destroying us. If you want to protect human rights, if you want to do something about the climate, we need to resist the war machine that's stealing our resources, stealing from our health and education. Next year is the biannual military exercises Talisman Sabre. They're the second largest military exercises in the world. 20,000 United States troops are coming to Australia to continue to cement the relationship that Australia has. They're already here in bases in Darwin and going to be in Townsville. And if we don't stand up and do something about that, our social justice movements are going to be nothing when we're dragged into a war with China. We need to resist the US alliance. Thank you. We need to get as many people as possible up to Rockhampton in July to go and trespass onto the grounds and disrupt these war exercises to say, we do not want US-Australian alliance. We do not want to be part of the US empire. We want an independent, peaceful Australia, and that's what Eureka is about to me. Thank you.
All right, that's the first Eureka stump oration. Who's next?